You are now listening to the Light Overtime podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. Have you ever seen a Chevy with the butterfly doors? How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Man, it has been the most chaotic weekend I've had in a while. I'm going to try and see if I can pull off lounging in this here couch. I am at my friend Cody's. I am in his podcast area.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see the soundproof boards behind you and all that stuff.
Yeah. He generally has two mics set up, and they use this couch to use. It's I got to get the actual name of it. It's something Washed Up Gamer Dad's podcast, I believe.
All right.
It's pretty chill and pretty hype. I'm a fan.
All right.
But yeah, so I'm here. He's at work at the moment, but he graciously let me use his set so I can get this going. What are you drinking today?
Oh, man, I had a morning full of coffee, but I am still drinking some. It's the Onyx Monarch blend. It is like they put molasses and red wine, and it is along those lines. It's winey. It's actually really delicious. I gave it the old osmotic flow treatment on the Calitas, so it's got that nice, thick, textured body to it. It's really quite good.
Right on. I stopped into... I'm in my hometown right now, and there is a place called Raven Cafe, and it's all Edgar Allan Poe themed and such. I think I've talked about it before on here, maybe.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, got a large latte with an extra shot. It's fine. I've obviously gotten a little better at coffee since I was in high school, so it leaves some to be desired, but the cafe itself is pretty rad. So
cool.
Yeah, living the dream. What you been shooting this week, my man?
Well, after the Northern Lights and all that stuff, I didn't have a whole lot to do, but I did get out this morning to shoot some wildlife, if you want to talk about it for a bit. I had actually a really good morning with the A7 IV and the 150 to 600. Yeah, so I got out to the river where I normally go, about 15 minutes from my house. And I'm out there probably 2 to 4 times a month, I'll say. Try to carve out a couple hours every other week or so, or about that. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really quiet. But regardless, I always have a good time. It's like peaceful and serene. However, sometimes I try to make a little more out of it, be a little more productive. There's some choices I can make. So if I'll set the scene a little bit, getting there. It's just a little kind of like a boardwalk that is along the Jordan River in East Jordan here in Michigan. And the boardwalk is about, 20, 30 yards in length. So you can go up and down the river just a little bit. We get Canada geese, a lot of mallards, different ducks too, bufflehead, goldeneye. We got a lot of mergansers of different kinds. So there's some variation on the water, some swans, and there's a couple eagles' nests. So I get actually quite a good bit of variation even at this time of year. But normally just shooting from the boardwalk doesn't give me the best angles for wildlife. You tend to like to be eye level with a lot of wildlife shooting. So where the intention comes in today is I got equipped to be able to like sit in some grassy, like muddy spots, and sat down about an hour before sunrise. So that takes a bit of commitment sometimes, getting up that early to get out there that early. So I sat down, hunkered down in some grass, some really frosty grass. And this time of year is great for that because the snow is kind of gone, but the ground is still really firm, so you're not sinking into mud. So that's cool. So I just had a really good time shooting a bunch of like ducks, some muskrat, just a lot of different things that came by. And the nice part about it was I was at a position where my lens was only about, 8 inches off of the ground or so, maybe about a foot. Which is about a foot or 2 lower than it normally would be if I was laying down on the boardwalk. Getting that eye level super important. And where I was facing, there was the sun coming up on the other end, so I would be shooting towards the sun. So getting a lot of backlighting situations, which is like I follow a few photographers who really specialize in that for wildlife, backlight with the sun. And the hard part about it is you get a couple minutes basically. You get when the sun just starts cresting over the horizon, the golden glow of that golden light doesn't last very long. So I luckily had one subject in particular, a sandhill crane, that was on this like I don't know if this like grassy part of the river there's like a grassy hill mound that kind of comes up and over. So he was standing on that as the sun was backlighting him for just a couple of minutes, and I just like fired away as like there was a foggy mist rolling by, so like the light was catching through that. I haven't had time to look at the images yet, and I took probably 1,000 different images, but that's like the one scene that I made the most out of the tiny little sliver of time that I'm excited to look at. So that was my morning. I had a great time doing it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see some of that stuff. I definitely try to be either backlit or like full on 90-degree side light when I'm doing any kind of wildlife stuff. I really freaking hate when the light's behind me. It just looks like bad party flash all the time. Yeah, if you have a pretty diverse background, or if it's like a particularly contrasty animal, it's not so bad. But like, man, I definitely prefer to hit that sweet golden hour kind of like low in the sky backlight. It's pretty nice, especially like just shooting domestic dogs and stuff. It's like absolute money.
This is where being like a well-intentioned landscape photographer comes in handy, because I've already got the tool set of like knowing position of the sun, the timing, the conditions, and being in that area often. I get to know kind of ahead of time, like, I don't know, where the animals might be, so I can position myself kind of guessing, an educated guess basically on what the best spot might be to like face towards the sun and where the animals might be. So like having all those things in mind beforehand is really good if you're trying to be an intentioned wildlife photographer. Get to know the area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think most wildlife and landscape photographers that are worth their salt will tell you that, like, while you can roll up to a new location and like get a banger really fast, like some of their best work will always be like the 100th time they were somewhere, or like you really know, like it's how you step your game up, right? Like
it's absolutely true.
Yeah, as many variables as you start taking away from chance, and then it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm happy
what you been up to?
Man, photography wise, it's been a little lackluster. I've basically just been doing just the stuff like the very basic social media posts this week. We kind of got a lot going on at the shop, but I found myself for the first time not super enthralled with trying to get out. So this week I'm going to try and make like a pretty good conscious effort to get out and about and shoot for myself. I'm not even sure I've really pulled my personal camera out of my bag, and I take it everywhere. I have it no matter what I'm doing. I always take my camera backpack. I got a Shimoda X30, and it comes with me everywhere. But yeah, I just haven't been too compelled lately. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I've been stewing for the last few days about Sony, so I couldn't tell you whether or not I wanted to get into it on this podcast, but I was actually looking at other cameras and stuff this week. That's how upset I am.
Yeah.
Do you have any take on this camera that they decided to drop?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you want to get into it, I'm not giving them as hard of a time as I think you are, for the specific reasons that you think you'd want a camera in this way. So we're talking about the ZV-E1, right? The full frame, super compact version of the A7S III, but with all the shiny new bells and whistles, except for the few that matter to you. In general, I'm basically just going to regurgitate the reviews I watched because I kind of agree with them that it's a powerful camera. It's got a lot of features, some gimmicky, some not. And it does have that A7C body style, which I think a lot of vloggers are going to use. And that's, I think, what they were aiming for, was the ultimate vlog camera, the end-all, be-all kind of vlog camera.
See, if it was an actual A7C body, I wouldn't be upset. But it's
right,
not.
If it had a viewfinder. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I can't deal with that.
It's smaller.
It is, yeah.
It cannot manage the heat of that camera.
Oh, no. Yeah, we can talk about that.
The only tests I saw for like that anybody said was like in relatively controlled environments, be damned you're outside on even a warm day.
Right.
And
There's a
that
reason they
thing
didn't release
lasts.
this in August.
Dude, it's like, okay, I'm glad you have 4K 120 and you have, 4K 60 and it's basically all the A7S stuff, but it's worse for photos. It's like you took a camera that's already bad for photos and made it worse because it doesn't have a mechanical shutter and it's not fast enough to alleviate the issue of not having a mechanical shutter, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it harkens back to the early days of the SLT system that I grew up on basically with photography, where if I was trying to do any video, it better not be 80 degrees out and I better not need more than about 5 or 10 minutes. And that's kind of what it's looking like because I didn't see anybody testing the video above 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
And let me backtrack a little bit because it's not so much that I'm upset that this camera's worthless to me. Like it's a non-starter for me. I won't get it. It's not that helpful. It's mostly that they used an existing camera sensor that I did own for many years, and now they're like, oh, but we can give this more software.
Hmm.
And like honestly, I guarantee you, I'll bet my entire camera system on it. Had they just put a firmware update for something like breathing and like the focus mapping and stuff onto the freaking camera, I don't think I would care. But don't like develop all of this new software and all this other stuff for a camera that's for like casual like YouTuber people, which is still $2,200, by the way. This is not a
Hmm.
cheap camera. If you think over 2 grand is cheap, then like I
You're
wish
right.
I had your life. But like they have the technology. You're not you're not crippled by anything to give the A7S III a firmware update to have some of this stuff. And it wouldn't cut off people who want an A7 IV, and it wouldn't cut off people that it would not affect your other cameras to just give these basic features to these 35 to $6,000 cameras. And that's upsetting to me as somebody
Hmm.
who has invested over 10 grand into this system. Like, okay, so now I know the very next time I buy something, like it's not going to see any support. It's, you're going to release a camera that's like 1,000 or more dollars less than it a year later that's going to have all this fancy new software, and you're not going to give it to the professional camera.
Yeah.
And as far as I
Yeah.
know, that like they could have even given it to the FX3, which is supposed to be a little bit more premium, and they haven't. They should have given it to the A1. That doesn't even have an excuse to not have focus breathing and stuff because it has a large megapixel sensor, and they didn't. And so, like, I struggle with that because somebody like Lumix, somebody like Fujifilm, if they have technology that they bring to a camera and it's possible to be into their other systems, they generally give them those features. That sucks. That
Yeah.
makes me question if I want to drop the 4K that it's going to cost for me to get, a would-be A7S 4 or whatever that looks like. Unfortunately, we're not going to see another like an A7 V very soon. I'm sure we got at least 2 years before they dump a new one, but that sucks for me. That like really makes me feel like they're just going to keep pushing out shit for like to make the quick dollar, and they just aren't doing anything.
Yeah, yeah. I want to be clear. I definitely empathize with that. The reviews are mostly good because it can do a lot of things. The reviews that I've watched generally just didn't care to touch too much on that particular aspect of like ownership of between the A7S III and this camera. That burns and it should be offensive. And
Yeah.
I have no problem with you even questioning whether to switch systems because of this, because that sucks.
Yeah, I mean that the reason I got rid of my A7S III was because there's a couple of hardware things that I prefer on the A7 IV. Like I love the photo video modes being separate, and once I started going back to my A7S III, I was so frustrated every time I had to switch because then I have to turn off. You actually have to go in and turn off your picture profile and do all this stuff just to go back to like standard raw images and then reverse it. Or you just use like the three quick settings, right? But I don't like doing that all the time. I like just being in aperture priority and set it on the fly. But yeah, I cannot believe that why it's so offensive to me that they didn't add focus breathing is that they're making these G Master Glass, like, they're very good. They're incredible lenses, but they're completely avoiding doing anything about breathing control because they're doing it in software. And there's some physics there. I'm not going to get into it because I'm definitely not like that level of technical, but I do know that there is some physics behind their mount size and, how big your lenses have to be if you correct them for breathing and stuff. But I'm fine with the software. I don't care about the crop. Like, I'm cool with a 35-ish. I'm cool with a 50-ish. I'm cool with a 24-ish. But then now I'm using G Master Glass and I don't get those features on a camera that's not very old.
You're heavily invested at that point.
Yeah. For a camera that, like, I should be considering, I shouldn't have to upgrade an A7S III for 5 years because it took 6, I think, for them to release the 3 over the 2. Right? Like, it wouldn't be crazy of me to expect that I'm not going to see another follow-up to the A7S III anytime soon. It would be crazy of me to be pissed off if I was like, well, I can't believe they haven't released an A7S IV yet, because it would be crazy for them to do that. Unless they found probably in their marketing that people really wanted it and it was going to make them a lot of money. But it's just so frustrating. I don't know what the hell they're doing. And it's not like people have been quiet. People like Philip Bloom have had like a full video essay on their frustrations, ranting about Sony, and Gerald's talked about it, and all these big guys that have connections and who have talked to Sony people. And I know some of them have talked to engineers at conventions like NAB and all this other stuff. Yet we're still here and we're still dealing with like no support.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes me literally not want to spend $3,500 again.
Yeah. It's a big commitment.
Yeah, it's besides that, because I think that's all I really have to say about it. I'm just really disappointed. What other thing that I forgot about was going to happen this weekend is I, as a marketing professional, absolutely hate April Fool's Day.
Me too.
I think it is like nothing is funny. None of it gets me even a giggle. And I just wish as marketing professionals, we would just not do April Fool's content. Like, some people spend a lot of money on like a fake commercial and do this like stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so fleeting to me. And I had to like stay off the internet yesterday. And especially in my industry, a bunch of people did a bunch of stuff. And like, what's almost more offensive is there was a couple of people that did like a big April Fool's campaign of something that like people legitimately want. Like, it wasn't like that much of a meme. It was like, so you're completely aware that that's something that we've been wanting for.
Yep.
For like it's like, wow, you guys suck.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, just throw it in my face then. I guess I'll go elsewhere.
Here, I'll give you an example of that. I happen to play Rocket League just like casually, and there's a lot of, if you know Rocket League, toxicity in the game because their quick chats in Rocket League are like, what a save. You can use that very sarcastically, right?
Oh,
if you
always.
like, don't make a save, and they
That's
say,
me
what a
every
save.
time.
Toxicity in that game is rampant. Well, if you played Rocket League on April Fools, you would know they switched up all the quick chats just to be hilarious. Like, never going to give you up Rick Astley lines like in the quick chats. Things like that, right? It was so funny. Not a single person could use that like in a toxic way because people were just having a good time with it. It was like, it transformed the game. But we don't get to keep that. We get the toxic stuff the next day.
Yeah, right.
I want the good stuff.
Yeah, that seems at least fun. I definitely would prefer to have like a gimmicky meme for the day. But man, the marketing side of things is definitely pain. It's just
pain. I generally just avoid basically anything to do with the internet on April Fools. It sucks. I hate it.
Yeah. Between that and like, I don't want to go into a generational war or whatever, but a lot of the older people on my social media just like quick gotchas that are like really intense, and you're like, this is obviously an April Fool's joke. Like, you didn't get me, and they're like, go. It's like it's exhausting for me. I generally at least hope to see one good thing, and I didn't. It was just
You know what?
exhausting.
What always gets me is I'm usually prepared when I wake up on April Fools. But if I happen to be up at midnight the day before and it rolls over to 12:01 a.m. and there's freaking articles going up already, I saw the stupid Nikon ZM one at like 12:30 or something, some late at night.
Yeah.
And it was April Fools and I didn't even realize it was. I was like, "Oh shit." A medium format, and then like it took me 30 seconds to like, god damn it, it's April Fools. I hate this.
Yeah, my body just knows when it's close, and I'm just like, oh man. And that was a particularly depressing meme too, because like Nikon, maybe you should do
I was like, wait, I think there's a bunch of people who would actually buy this. That's kind of nope, they would never do it.
Yeah. Well, they'd have to directly compete again with we've talked about like the full frame camera companies trying to go medium format. I don't think it'd work very well for them. It's just too niche. But yeah, that's definitely depressing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been definitely kind of a chill week for news and stuff. Other than that, unfortunately, I don't have too many rumors or really any news stuff. But I did want to ask this week if you've watched any content that particularly sparked some interest this week.
Nothing that I can think of. I do spend a lot of time consuming content, but it's mostly like informational stuff. Maybe I should try to. Actually, that's not true. I spent a good portion of my week watching a lot of Thomas Heaton videos. I'm a big fan of his work, not just his YouTube videos, but I actually do enjoy the photography he does. Even though pretty much his avenue for distributing it is on YouTube these days. But I have his book, his first book anyway, and I buy his calendars, and I just love his work. So I spent a ton of time catching up on the videos I have not watched in the past couple of months, because I know once summer gets here, I'm not going to have any more time, and I don't want to be too far behind because I do enjoy it. Because I get in these ruts or these like phases where I'll do like astro for months on end and not think about anything else because that takes a lot of energy to be up at night and not do stuff during the day, whatever. And then I'll do wildlife for months on end, and then I'll like focus on landscapes. And now I'm like trying to like, okay, the weather's getting better. I want to be outside more. How do I want to spend that time? And I've been watching a bunch of his videos because just his enthusiasm for whether he gets images or not, his storytelling, he loves to just be outdoors. And he does have great storytelling, and I love watching his videos. So I've been consuming a lot of his content lately, wanting to get out and just like focus on landscapes. I was super close to not doing wildlife. I was like, maybe I should just take the 50 out and just like go on a trail. And then I'm like, wait, it's northern Michigan and like April, the trails are like disgusting right now.
Yeah. You basically need waders to get through a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I've definitely watched some of his stuff. He had some particularly interesting stuff. I think when I was looking at switching systems at one point, I was watching his stuff. I some of the like really out there landscape photographers, every time I watch them, I'm such a gear nerd, right? Like I just see kit and I'm like, I want kit.
Right.
I always fall for those like big clip-on like filter systems. And like, cause they're good. Like you're talking like super good glass in front of your lenses, and it's like, oh man. And I'm like a cinema guy, so you know I like matte boxes and stuff like that. And it's basically just like, let's put the best freaking like NDs. I think gradient filters are awesome because I use gradients in Lightroom all the time. Like obviously,
for sure.
I would love to have in camera gradient stuff happening for exposure and things, but yeah, those guys that really give it to the landscape side of photography they're something else. I kind of equate them to like rock climbers. They're just their own breed of human, kind of.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I ask because do you watch The Art of Photography at all, Ted Forbes?
Oh man, it's been a while actually. Yeah.
I really appreciate Ted Forbes because there's few people online that remind me that there are people out there just doing photography to do photography. And I had a moment where I was kind of complaining about that a couple episodes ago, right?
Yeah.
Where like it's just so difficult to find because you're in a sea of people that are like on social. And some of these people producing really good work don't give a shit about social media. And that's probably
Yeah.
a really interesting way to go about it because, like, I wonder how full they feel from photography still because they don't like succumb to like I need to blow up my feed and stuff like that. They just have whatever parts of their life are put together enough that they're like, I just go out and photograph and make like
Hmm.
zines and stuff. And he does mail days. Ted Forbes does, and which he'll kind of like go through people's books that they send in to him and stuff. And it's like it's always remarkable, like that he has really constructive feedback, whether it's good or like helpful, and it just like every time that happens it sparks me to want to photograph again, and that's why I feel like I do today, where I said, I haven't really got out. Now I need to hold myself accountable to not shooting much because I do enjoy it, and that video yesterday made me enjoy it. But um, there's a couple of different books that all kind of related to dream stuff, and one particular person sent in a little zine that was like the style zine that I've been wanting to put out, which is like I want to do a book that's maybe 25 to 40 pages, but like stapled, really cheap paper, like just something that like I could sell for basically cost, maybe make enough to make the next pressing, and then
Hmm.
put together something like quarterly, that I can hopefully figure out if I can drop ship it or something so I don't have to print a bunch of copies. Like I'd print like 10 or 15 for myself to like give out or leave on people's coffee tables. But if people wanted to support my photography and just art in general, it'd be a cool way to just get a little bit of kickback to at least like afford to keep making them, right?
You might be able
Um,
to facilitate that through like Patreon or something, right?
yeah, but then you got to like build out like fans and Patreon and stuff. And I need to
That's
figure
true.
out, I want to figure out a way to do it where it's like an easy link where like my grandmother, if she wanted to like spend $5 and get a little cheap zine or whatever,
Yeah.
hopefully I could keep it under like 15 or something. Right. And then, have a pretty high quality thing. I should be getting in the mail this week. Now this is divisive.
Let's
there's a
hear it.
com there's a company called Field Ethos, and they're ran by a couple of dudes that are in like the really big game like hunting scene, and like one of the main friends, or like I don't know if he's like an executive producer, but he's friends with all the guys in the magazine, is Donald Trump Jr. And it's like the part of Donald Trump Jr. where you realize, oh, this is a real human being, not just a nightmare. Because like generally, if I see this man's social media, it's concerning to me. I'll be honest, but um, the one of the main guys that takes photos for this particular magazine, he runs almost exclusively a Leica Q2, and his photography is fantastic. And whoever is putting together these books, because they basically have a subscription for a quarterly magazine, and the articles are like barely over a page most of the time. They're like short articles. It's based on like hunting and just outdoors, and it's pretty wholesome for the most part. Any ads that are in it feel really well integrated because they're usually like to do with something related to one of the pages before or after. It's like hunting stuff and fishing stuff. They have like Waterman things, but I got onto it because some of the guys at the shop met them and were kind of doing a collaboration with their company through my job. But it's literally one of the most beautiful magazines I've ever seen, and it
Mm.
kind of also put a fire under my ass to like I just want to be printing my stuff more. And I haven't put together myself a book from the Philippines trip yet, but I try to do that for every major trip I did. I have a pretty thick book of my Japan trip from 2019. And there's just something so visceral about photography in print when you actually print your stuff. And I don't care if it's an inkjet printer on like 8.5 by 11 paper. Like you should make physical copies of some of your favorite photos, and you'll start to want actual prints and things like that. Um, it's so important to me that I get on this again because man, it's like if you are even lackluster at all, but you used to be super passionate about photography, it like jump starts it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a time when, not that long ago, actually, for between 2016 or 17 up until I want to say 2021, because I didn't do one last year. I was printing my own calendars on these on this thick paper. I was like super into it. And I love printing my work. I wrote my book. I do have a book that I spent almost a year writing, and I got it printed out. And the print quality isn't great, but just having the book in a format that you can hold, and the pictures, once you can put it, spread out nice and big. I wrote it out. Having it in your hands is something super special, and the calendars too. Just the being intentional about what paper type, there's texture to it, and designing it myself. Like I didn't just go up on Vistaprint or whatever just to throw a calendar out into the world. I actually like killed my nice printer because I ran thousands of pages through that thing producing calendars, and the calendars weren't cheap. I sold them for like $35 a pop. I'm like, who's buying a $35 calendar? Well, plenty of people, because I sold a ton. But it was just like a labor of love, right? Like you want to do it because it just feels so good to have this thing in your hand. You hold and flip the pages, and it is very physically satisfying to hold your art like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think Jared Polin talks about it a lot, but so does Peter McKinnon, and talk about like the gift of photography all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I recently gave 3 of the prints. Like I got into printing some of my stuff just for myself, but I was moving around so much that I never am in a place where I'd hang my own stuff up until soon, because I'll actually have walls that I can decorate. But I had these 3 prints that I shot off of the Shinkansen going from Tokyo to Osaka with Evan. And I gave those 3 prints to them, and they got frames for them, and they're hanging up in their dining room now. And like, it always feels good to walk into that house and see like 3 of my images on like 16 by 20 like prints. It's like a triptych on their wall, and they're in order of like going from Tokyo to Osaka, and it just feels good. Like it's better than getting a payday from a gig. It's better than like likes on a freaking Instagram page.
Oh, infinitely better.
It's just like walking in a room where somebody hung you. Well, they liked it enough that they hung it in their home where they look at it every day, is like infinitely better than anything that social media will ever give me.
And the absolute OGs are the ones that don't care how much it costs. They want it for like a big portion of a wall, and it's never going to move, right? Like I have a couple of customers from years past who want like 24-inch, 36-inch or bigger like aluminum prints. I had a person who wanted a picture of some of the swans on the Jordan River flying at me. It was winter. It was like super frosty and blue, and a wonderful image of this scene. They blew it up to like 48 inches on canvas, and they invited me to their cabin to see where it ultimately ended up. I was like, this is just incredible, right? Like, There's no better feeling. There really isn't as an artist.
Yeah. So I'd like to get to the point where, like, at the end of this year, I have somehow gifted a few more images this year than I did last year, just because it definitely makes me feel way better. Currently, I'm still staying with the family that's put me up until I get into my apartment. And they had a dog that passed, and then they got a new one. They rescued like an 8-year-old giant schnauzer. His name is Oscar. He's amazing. He's very scared of a camera, but like one of my primary duties and goals is to get a really great image of him before I leave, and I'm going to have that printed out properly for him.
Nice.
Because like he's an all black giant schnauzer too, so like to capture his face well with detail. Like, it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be easy to get a good photo of this dog, but I absolutely plan to get like a killer one that's like definitely wall worthy, and print that off and get a good frame for him, and gift that to them for putting me up for so long and stuff.
That's a great gift.
Because like otherwise, I truly don't think they want anything from me. They'd probably be like, no, you don't have to do that. No. But if I do that, they'll probably be pretty stoked about it. So yeah, it's good. I love it, man. It makes me feel whole.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, this week, that is all I had. So this is the current shortest episode that we've ever had on the show yet. Without news and stuff to yammer at. And I truly didn't want to rant about that ZVE one. I could have had a whole episode just absolutely furious about it, but I'm trying to just not like live with that much negative energy in my brain right now. It's not good for me, so it's definitely not good to put it on you guys. So I appreciate you listening. What would you like to accomplish this week in photography?
Oh man, for photography, I would like to get out and do some landscape stuff. I have been, like I said, I watched probably 10 different Heaton videos in the last couple of days, and I'm feeling that urge strong. I'm surprised I didn't give up on the wildlife and just do that because I really wanted to. So I think I'm going to try and carve out a morning or a sunset and try to do just pure landscape photography because I need it.
Yeah, word. Well, then obviously we'll keep in touch, and I'll see how that ends up going.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to try to shoot. I'm spending the last day in Port Huron today here at Cody and Becca's, so I'm probably going to play with Pumpkin a bunch. I'll try to get some good photos of her because I love her to death. She's a little pit bull that I hang out with here. And yeah, I don't know quite yet what I want to do. I'm going to photograph like a SWAT training tomorrow. So I'll be doing some pretty cool stuff for work, but I definitely got to press out of the industry work that I'm doing this week and get after something. If it stays like this, it's cold today, but man, is it sunny. And if I can get a couple days like that, because this rain is killing me. I like doing stuff out in the rain, but man, I need some vitamin D and like
Yeah. I hear you.
just some good times. So yeah, we'll chat and hopefully maybe I'll set a hard goal for myself to get 3 posts on Instagram this week. We'll see what happens.
All right.
I say
forward to
3
it.
because I say 3 because I'm still glued to triptychs, and it's
I know.
that's why I don't post, dude. If I don't have like 3 somewhat matching posts, I just won't post on Instagram, so it'll go weeks and weeks.
Yeah, that's kind of what my coffee page has been looking like for a while. I have to have that row looking nice and clean.
Yeah. I actually just a couple days ago I went through and I wasn't happy with how like jumbled the Philippines photos looked, so I archived all of them but 3 that were like blue landscapes. And I was like, that's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I got that way, but maybe it's because I envy people like Pete who literally have the best like curated over long periods of time feeds.
Well,
I can't do that. Like I just can't.
it is kind of like the first point of contact for anybody who wants to look at your work, right? Like for the most part, if you have a website, people are going to try to find you on social first, unless they, for some reason, just find like your link and want to click on it, because otherwise people are pretty much seeing your socials before anything else.
Yeah.
So keep it clean.
I actually got rid of my website a couple weeks ago.
I did the same. Well, not
Really?
rid, but I overhauled. Probably at this like the same time as you. I ditched Wix. I was using Wix for years, and I just wasn't getting out of it what I thought I was like really. It just wasn't as valuable to me as I thought it was at one time. And it was facilitating payments. That's really what I needed it for like workshops and stuff. And I was like, I got to the point where I just don't need that anymore. I can take payments other ways. Like I don't want to pay $500 a year just to do that. So I gave up on Wix, and now I just use the Adobe portfolio that I already pay for with Adobe Suite, whatever, right? So, yeah.
Oh wow, I'll have to look.
I
at
cleaned
that.
it right up.
Yeah, I'll probably look at that right when we're done here because I have that as well. I just don't use it.
Yeah, use it. Yeah, this is a nice PSA. If you pay for the Adobe Suite, I think even just the photography package, you have access to A, free storage, cloud storage, and B, a free website. And I think you get a domain with it. Like there's kind of a lot there that you can utilize. It's nice.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I still pay for my domain name. I just don't use my Squarespace site, so I canceled it this year.
Yeah.
Well, like once I went full time and I knew that like I wasn't going to be pressing for like work, I was just like, dude, I don't need a website like that right now.
Right.
I actually feel pretty empty with most of the social media platforms, and I weirdly miss MySpace like all the time. And I don't know, I want to feel like that again with the social media where like it actually feels like I can reach my friends. And cause like feeds, dude, I don't see anything my friends post. Like I don't even know why I use them. So like, I don't know. That's another discussion for later when we want to jump into hating on social media. But
yeah, that's fair.
I certainly need to figure something out. Yeah, more curating of that Instagram, I guess, until one of these other. Have you been on Vero or?
I was part of the like part 2 revival thing for about 2-3, maybe a month, and then finally I was like, people just didn't jump over like the first time. So I was like, I'm not gonna be here if no one else is here again.
Yeah, they made a really strong push having like Peter McKinnon and all those guys like really rep it, but
Yeah.
it still is nothing, man. I even jumped on Hive very briefly, um, and that was a wash.
Mm, yeah. It's
Yeah,
interesting, right? It's like, what does it take for social, like these big monsters, social platforms, Facebook, Instagram? Like, what is it going to take? How bad can they get before we just stop using them altogether? It's like seemingly never going to happen.
yeah. Well, a lot of people are not using them altogether though. That's the
But to
thing.
have
So
no
like,
alternative that like works for a lot
yeah,
of people,
yeah, but like,
it's
so
crazy.
this is the thing. It's like if there's a way that somebody could potentially make it, that's what the platform is for. So like you would have to go on a platform because you just want to connect and share stuff and not like I'm going to try to use this to monetize my hobbies or my life or like make more business. And now that it's just like entrepreneurship, like marketing, everything, it's never going to be MySpace again.
Yeah.
And
Those
like
days are gone.
GG, man, because I'd curate the living hell out of all, using HTML to get like all the crazy colors and whatever music I wanted. And like I had this thing that was so overtly my identity printed on the internet, and you'd go to
Careful.
everybody else's and
The age groups that might be listening to this might have no idea what you're talking about here.
oh, they probably most definitely do. Honestly, I was pretty young to even be on MySpace as early as I was. I got grounded multiple times because I made a MySpace.
Yeah, I think I was 14, maybe
Yeah.
15.
Yeah, I was young. No, I was in middle school. So I was in like 6th or 7th grade. So I was 12
Yeah.
like max, and yeah, I definitely got grounded a bunch because I was on there just like talking to people and
It was a wild ride, man. It was fun.
yeah. I miss the early internet.
Yeah.
But we'll probably never have it again because capitalism is the only way that we can move forward, and it's the greatest way to run a society. So as long as capitalism is the way, um, that's what we got.
Ooh, hey, before we end, can I have like another side discussion about AI? I don't know if you saw my stories or not.
Man, so there's a couple of things going on with AI, and what's really crazy is a bunch of people literally asking for us to stop like the development of AI, which is insane. But I got dragged into just reading trending Twitter about Chat GPT 5, and there are tons of people that literally think it's going to be AGI. How do you feel about that?
Can you tell me what that means?
So AGI is just like artificial general intelligence. It's like when
Oh,
you are like
yeah.
like a movie AI. They literally think GPT 5 is going to get there.
Right, like iRobot type of situation.
Sure.
Sure, yeah, closest thing to that anyway. I don't think that that's like uh, it's like a conversation to be had for sure because you know the technology progresses so fast. It's easy to think this could get out of hand quickly because this is a thing that kind of makes decisions creative or not. It's really tough to like have a conversation with somebody who really is on the deep end of that side because they're not gonna believe otherwise, right? So to go like, well, no, it's actually based on very specific, it's got guides. It's like, well, it's hard to have that argument because the
Yeah.
technology has just moved so fast.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think the models are in the same place to create AGI in that like system. I mean, I read, I don't know how real it is, but it's like something up to 25,000 GPUs, like calculating like 65 quadrillion or like gazillion freaking, data sets or whatever. And it's like, that's a lot. I understand that it's getting really, really powerful. And a lot of people don't know how to handle it, but, yeah, it's there. So let's talk about your little Bing experiment.
Yeah. So, I mean, that conversation aside, I think there's some really cool ways to play with what's available right now as an artist to be used as a tool and not just for photographers. So I had two different experiences with Bing Chat. AI, Bing's version using OpenAI, right? And they're making some quick advancements too that make this a really cool thing to play with. So the first thing I did was I was just like interested to see if it could like make decisions based on conditions I gave it, not necessarily like the easy thing that they kind of advertise is make me an image based on the style of blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, I want to see how deep like if I can go like second level with this, right? So what I did was I prompted it first to be like, hey, could you create an image for me based on a short story that I write for you, which was a couple of paragraphs. I wanted to like set a scene and get it to understand the context of the environment that I wanted it to think about. And then it said, yes, that sounds like a fun challenge. And so I wrote the short story. And first, what I wanted it to do was give me like a picture of the setting of the scene, and it did that for me. So the scene for you guys was the scene is a photographer walking through a forest. There's snow on the ground and it's sunrise. So like the sun is just rising. And basically that's the scene. There was a bunch of other conditions like this photographer has a backpack and a camera on a tripod. And there's 3 lenses that he has available to him. And then I prompted it after it gave me 4 images of what that scene looks like. I then asked it, okay, you know, this is a photographer, you know, the equipment it has. Can you provide for me a landscape image? Because this is the intention that that photographer has. Can you provide for me a landscape image that that photographer might take in that scenario? So that's like going the second level. And it provided me a very similar scene, but through that character's perspective that it created. And it was like beautiful. It was actually, and I use photorealistic. These are kind of like little adjectives and stuff that you have to use to help guide what you want it to look like as a style. So I like to use photorealistic. It pushes it a little further to give a lot of detail. And it did. It looked beautiful. So I thought that was super interesting. I just posted it on my stories. There's no like higher message. I just think it's cool to use. The second, well, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm beginning to find ways every week that like I use ChatGPT for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even just for email stuff or like helping proofread like copy and stuff like that. Like I'm already to the point where that's a regular thing for me because it's just like if I'm not using it, I'm behind.
So I have this second story. Sorry, I'm excited about this. This second experience I had with Bing Chat AI was like, whoa, this is interesting. I never even thought that I could use this way. So my wife is writing a book, and it's like this. It's a long process. It's like a novel, and occasionally, as writers do, they get writer's block, right? So it's like, I didn't even think to use it this way because what we were doing at first was, I wonder if it can create an image that is kind of like what I have in my mind when I'm writing. This is my wife's words. What I have in my mind as I'm writing like this page or whatever. So she was like copy pasting me some things to like have it create, and it was doing an okay job sometimes and a terrible job sometimes because it was like picking very specific instances and making images based on that, which didn't really work out. However, I worded something incorrectly to it when I asked it to analyze what I just said and reinterpret because I thought that it was going to provide me new images. And what it did instead was analyzed the paragraph that my wife wrote and reinterpreted everything and basically just spit out a different version of her story. And I was like, whoa. And it wrote it beautifully in her style. And it didn't know anything other than like the 1,000 characters, right? Like a few hundred words. It was beautiful. It was like a page that could have like ended a chapter. I was like, whoa, this is wild. This is like a tool for a writer to go and say, okay, if I'm like stuck and I don't know where to go, or how do I like, let's say I like hate what I wrote because I don't think it represents like the story the way I want it to in this instance. Just give it to Bing Chat AI, say reinterpret what I wrote, and it gives you the same style of your writing. If that's like a tool, just a tool in your tool set of whatever you use to like creatively unblock that writer's block, what a powerful way to do it. To like be inspired by your own style of writing, just spit out to you a different way, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, it's really, really powerful. Like I put in an entire breakdown of a shooting class, like a pistol rifle class that Zach had sent me to clean up for him, essentially, just overlook it. And I put it into GPT-4 and said, can you rewrite this as though William Shakespeare wrote it? And it was a beautiful prose talking about like all of this like gun stuff, but it was literally like super well metered like poetry. And it got rid of all of the like bullet points and stuff. It reformatted it as such and everything. And I was just like, I just copied it and sent it back to him. And he's like, what the hell? And then so I did another one for him that was as if a pirate wrote it. And it's just hilarious, man. Like, and it's really good. It doesn't just like put stupid stuff in it like R and whatnot. It like totally reframes how you would explain stuff, and things that like a pirate wouldn't know about. It would explain it as though a pirate had just seen this like new thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
kind of mind blowing.
It's wild because it is really good if you provide it the context it needs to actually do what you want it to do. Like if you're asking it to do something complex without giving it a ton of information, it's kind of shooting in the dark and you're going to go, oh, this thing sucks. But actually, if you provide it a ton of context and be very clear about what you want it to do, it's a powerful thing, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've always said about AI, especially when we first started talking about ChatGPT, right? It's like if you give it crappy ins, it's going to give you crappy outs. Like just period. Like it's not like a magic tool that's going to know that you're wrong and like
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so like it was so frustrating to see people use it in a way that was legitimately beyond its scope and be like, "Well, see, it's garbage." And it's like, "Well, you fed it garbage." Like it's not AGI, right? It's not Scarlett Johansson at the other end of your OS from her, like totally breaking down all access to information in the world, reading through all your emails instantly, and then just like being able to handle things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a fun conversation. I'm less skeptical about its utility, but I still totally don't see why people are so freaked out by it. I'm not, because it's going to be exciting, and in 5 years, whenever we get to where we're going with it, it'll probably just be like Google, and we'll be used to it, and it is what it is. But for now, I'm going to keep playing with it and enjoy the ride because here we are.
And there's going to be like knee jerk stuff. Like, did you see the Pope image thing and like Midjourney? Was it Midjourney that like retracted
Probably.
some abilities for that?
Yep.
I mean, and of course, if you've used it and tried to make anything remotely offensive, most of these are going to tell you that's too offensive, that's too disturbing. We can't do that. We'll move. Like, let's move on. Like, there's definitely restrictions, and there's definitely ways to get around a lot of those restrictions. But this is going to be something that's going to be pretty well regulated and only going to be more regulated as these things pop up.
Yeah, I thought the Donald Trump getting arrested images were so funny. It's like
I actually didn't see any of those.
Oh, dude, it's like
I heard about them.
It's like Donald Trump like wrestling with like 10 cops, and he's like, ah, it's so wild. And like, there's one where he like clearly has like six fingers. And you know, it's like super janky still, so it definitely doesn't like, you know, you're looking at art, you're not looking at like a photograph. But man, is it super funny. I'm excited about it. The utility that I'm starting to find makes it really exciting. I said, some of the preset stuff was kind of like my first intrigue, where I was like, oh, maybe if I'm just better, I'll find utility that actually helps me out, and you know, stop being a curmudgeon completely.
I mean, when I played with it last night, just for my wife's book, I was like, just accidentally stumbling on an amazing way for a writer to like help them with writer's block. I'm like, whoa, this is nuts. I can't believe I just accidentally thought to do this.
Yeah, I will already throw full paragraphs for emails through it and be like, can you make this more concise?
That's pretty cool.
And it just does it. And all the information's still there, and you're like, perfect. And then I send emails just because like sometimes I'm super wordy. And, you know, I know that I'm not being clear. I'm like, just make this better. And it does. So that's super awesome. And that happens basically any external email I send through work to like another company, I'm probably running it through ChatGPT already.
Yeah.
I haven't quite gotten to the point where like all of my social media copy is ChatGPT, but a lot of companies are like fully AI
Oh, I don't doubt it.
captions on like for their Instagram posts, and
I don't doubt it.
it's pretty wild. But yeah,
I promise, listeners, viewers, we're not going to talk about AI every single week, but it is exciting every once in a while.
yeah, I mean, we're not going to not be able to talk about it at times. I'm still not that blown away or super interested in like the image generation stuff. It's like neat. I did the Midjourney thing when it kind of popped off, and it's way better now, obviously. But like, I don't know, it doesn't affect me as a photographer, so it's not like a thing that I care about.
Yeah. I'm more interested in its like decision making, like how is it choosing to do certain things, and that's why I wanted to see if it could like take just the conditions and then go further with it. So that's all I found was really interesting.
Yeah, I think it was a very cool experiment for sure. It's smart, turns out. It has a lot of data that it has access to.
Yeah, no doubt.
But right on, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you got it this far, we got it up to about 55 minutes. We did our thing.
Pretty good.
Drop us a comment. I'd love to hear if you also are pissed off at Sony. That would help me a lot feel better about myself. Leave us a review on the old Spotify, chat with us, subscribe to David's Instagram and his YouTube channel. And
or if you don't want to stoke the fires about a ZVE1, how about you drop a comment about maybe what you're shooting? If you're into landscape photography, where you're shooting, what you're doing, maybe we can talk a little more positively.
No, I disagree.
Okay, let's burn it down.
I need solidarity in my pain. But yeah, like always, we want to see the work that you guys are producing. So if you have an Instagram you want to drop in the comments or something, I'm going to check it out. I'd love to see your work. If you're, new or if you're seasoned, like I love it all. So let's give a chat, and we'll make each other better and hold each other accountable for being good artists.
There's a few of you who've recently sent me messages saying how much you appreciate the podcast, and we appreciate you. We really do.
We do. So we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.